It's the microphone. Oh. And it's supposed to mute if I press it again. Well, it's clearly not doing that. Yeah, well, it's supposed to mute if I press the red button again. Hi. Yeah. Do I even need a microphone? Probably. So this is going to be, we're not starting yet. We're going to start at 11:30 on the dot, hopefully. But this is participatory. So if you would like a hand chime or tone bar to ring, then they're over there and I'll give you one if you walk over. It will be very clear when it's your time to ring it. That's what I can offer you up. Thank you, Catherine, our first volunteer.
No guarantee.
Please don't mess that up. It's going to be on YouTube.
Yeah. Why?
So they are streaming the whole thing. I don't know that they're going to retain it. You can look this afternoon and find out. You okay? Why don't you? I would give a few minutes.
Just to reiterate, it was a bad idea for me to do this in the corner, but I am passing out chimes. If you want to ring a chime, then you can come and get a chime. Little tone bars. It's very straightforward. They're in the corner.
Who needs a bell? Give my wife a bell.
Oh yeah. Do you want one or two? Okay.
I know. No, she's got to leave on the work trip. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I'm just looking at my music right now.
Looking to see who doesn't have a bell and I'm making a big one. It's called forcing. Maybe I'll sit over here and then as people come in I can get a bell.
Why don't you play a bell?
I am. I have one in my hand. How many more do you need?
They'll be relaxed. Okay, is there anyone left who doesn't have a choir chime and doesn't have like a pastor's wife exemption? Is there anyone left who wants a choir chime? Oh, it's not on? Well, it's on, I think. It's off? Okay, is there anyone who does not have a tone bar that would like a tone bar? Okay, you don't need to ring the tone bars yet, but the time will come, so don't worry. You're not getting out of this one. We can start now. Welcome to Handbell Day. More on that later. Hi, and welcome again to Handbell Day. My name is Jason, and I'm realizing that I think I know everyone here, and you all know my position. I'm the music resident right now at Westminster for the next 3 weeks and 1/2 day. But if this is your first time at Westminster, either on the live stream or in person, or it's your first time hearing handbells, or both, I hope this lives up to all of your expectations. The piece you just heard was the American folk hymn, Holy Manna, arranged by Larry Sue, and Vail McGuire was my wonderful duet partner, and hopefully she'll be back later. And Brent Manley is our accompanist today. Thank you so much in advance. You haven't heard him yet, but he's great. There are two kinds of instruments you're going to experience today. The first one is handbells, and this is a handbell. It's cast from bronze, and it has a clapper on the inside. I wasn't thinking when I held the mic in my hand and the bell in my other hand. It has a clapper on the inside that only moves in 2 directions. So if I go forward and backward, it will ring, but if I go to side, nothing's going to happen. It sounds like this. So you're going to notice it's a very overtone heavy sound. A handbell is actually tuned to 2 pitches. So the top half, or the lip of the bell, up here is tuned to the fundamental pitch of the bell, which in this case is a G. Do any of you have perfect pitch? Great. But the body of the bell is actually tuned to the second harmonic above the fundamental, which is an octave and a fifth higher. So this G, well, the bass note is a G. The note of the body of the bell is the same as this D up here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to ring this low G bell and then damp only the top half of it. So if you listen really closely and you're under the age of 45, you should be able to hear that D in there too. So sorry for everyone, but just listen closely. Yeah, so if you imagine the amount of overtones you get from that low G and the number of overtones you get from the high D and then all of that overlapping each other, that's why the bells sound like that. Yeah, that's how I felt too at first. The bells are very delicate and they break and scratch very easily. I'm wearing gloves right now so that my skin oils don't accidentally touch the bronze of the bell and tarnish it, which is a real thing that happens. But the other instrument that you all have, and that you're going to hear today, is called a choir chime, or tone bar. Westminster is actually the first place that I've ever been to that calls them tone bars, but I've only been to 3 places, so 1 in 3, I'll call it that. It is just a piece of aluminum tubing with a slit cut into the top of it so that it will resonate at a single pitch, and it has a much warmer tone than a handbell, and it sounds like this. Oh, Rose is so into this, isn't she? Okay. There's a time for you later, Rose. And it sounds like this. So you can hear that's only 1 note. It's not 2 like the handbells. Chimes were developed as a training instrument for young children because of the material, and unlike bells, you can drop or you can actually like lick a chime and it will be totally fine after a few Lysol wipes. I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but use your imaginations. And you're going to hear both bells and chimes in this next piece, Hart Morris's arrangement of I'm Just a Poor Wayfaring Stranger. And that's coming in about a minute when I rearrange my bells over here. It's a complicated microphone. You may have noticed that Westminster has a lot of bells, and I'm using maybe like 60% of them today. So retain that in your hearts. now it's your turn. So everyone, and if you are now ruining your choice to not have a choir chime in your hand, this is a great time. We have some extra. Everyone should have a hymn sheet with Jesus Loves Me and a choir chime. Is there anyone who wants that and does not have that right now? Great. So we're all going to practice ringing and damping the choir chimes a few times before we go into the hard work of handbell ringing. You're going to hold the chime. Don't do anything until I give you the signal, because I need to demonstrate also how to stop the sound, or else it's going to get very loud very fast. You're going to hold the chime straight up and down in front of you, like there's a scoop of ice cream at the top, and you're not going to move it far enough for the ice cream to fall off. And then you're going to flick it up towards the Te Deum window, like you are Jackson Pollock, and this is your latest canvas, and we didn't just spend all of that money restoring it. That's how you ring it. And then, because these are so indestructible, you can damp it by stopping the sound anywhere on your body, on your shirt, on your arm, maybe not on like the pew or on any like metal, but any soft object will safely stop the sound of this chime. So we're going to ring it like this, and then stop it somewhere. So you can try for a bit, a few attempts. It's really not as scary as it seems, right? Can you do it with a little bit more confidence? Okay, that's great. So if you look at your hymn sheet, you should see the words "To Jesus Loves Me," unless you have a C natural chime, in which case, if you would like another chime for right now, just raise your hand and I'll get you one. Does that apply to anyone? Or you can just bide your time will come. You'll notice, I hope everyone knows the melody "To Jesus Loves Me," but if you don't, you can just try your best to follow along. And you'll notice some words are underlined and some aren't. So the idea is when you get to an underlined word, you ring the chime, and when the underline goes away, you stop the sound by damping it against your upper body. Does that work for everyone? Okay, so Brent's going to play one full stanza of the hymn as introduction, and then you can all come in. I'd also recommend singing. That was really quite good. The confidence improved as it went along. So by the next one, you're all going to be ready to join Brent's choir on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. in the Handbell room here at Westminster Presbyterian Church. So to my right are the lowest 2.5 octaves of bells that Westminster owns, save 6 of them. We have 2 types of bells here. We have the bronze bells that I described before, and these 2 larger aluminum bells. So the heaviest of the bronze bells that's out here right now is this E3, which weighs just under 6 pounds. And it's not actually the heaviest bell that Westminster owns. That would be the A2, which weighs over 8 pounds and is currently being refurbished at a handbell shop in Pennsylvania. And so you can imagine, like, with the torque of all of that, see, I was an engineer at one point, but it gets really strenuous on the wrist over time. When the bells, as they get larger, or lower, they get larger and larger and heavier. So handbell manufacturers in, I don't know, the 90s, started casting these lower bells in aluminum instead of bronze. So an aluminum cast of any given bronze bell is twice the size of the bronze bell, but only weighs 1/3 of the bronze bell's weight, and also produces a much cleaner and less overtone heavy sound. So while it looks really impressive when I pick this bell up and stick it above my head and dance around with it, it really only weighs about 5 pounds, and it's going to sound like this. So you can hear, in comparison to those bronze bells, there's much less overtones, which is great, because as you get that low, I mean, the largest bell and lowest bell in the world is a C1, and there's 1 copy of it, and it's also in Pennsylvania. And you can hear like the second partial above it, and then just all the high notes. You can barely hear the fundamental pitch. So generally, these bass bells are used to enrich chords in larger bell choirs, which is why you'll see either Dennis or Sean Harrell up here in the corner with like 7 of them on different racks, and they'll just mount them around, and it makes these like beautiful low noises. But I wanted to give them a chance to speak on their own and do some little feats of strength. So the next piece is going to be a transcription of The Elephant from Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns. Is this? Yes. It said mute for a second. I thought I'd finally solved the mystery of how to mute it without turning it off, but alas. Before you all ring again, I wanted to take time for questions and answers. If you have questions about handbells, preferably about handbells, but about anything, I can answer them now. Yes?
When you were playing the tone bar, I noticed that you were manipulating the size.
Yeah. So This is pretty much the highest tone bar you can do this effectively with, but we call it chime vibrato. And if you tap the side of it very lightly, you have to tap the tongs to damp it. I should have clarified that before you all tried. But if you tap it very lightly and rapidly, it produces a vibrato in the sound. So this is the straight sound, right? And then I'll turn the way I'm facing so you can see it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my finger and going. And as the chimes get lower, it's very effective right here. As you get like to the really low ones, it starts being more of a like, if it's a tall chime. So yeah, that's one of my fun little handbell tricks. Yes? So it looks like piano sheet music, but with 6 times as many notes. If it is good handbell music by a handbell arranger who understands handbells, then usually the bass clef will be a lot more sparse and the chords will be more open, and then you'll have lots of notes in the treble clef. But then if it's something like, when I was ringing Wayfaring Stranger, because it's a solo arrangement, it's only the treble clef, and it has notes in there about like when you switch bells and when you drop a bell, and I've changed some of that. And then for these ones, for the duets that Vale and I are doing, it's also treble clef only, but it's only 8 notes. And so a lot of it is about stem direction in terms of like what's the melody and what's not. Anyone else? Yes. So, yes, it's for solo ringing. I have these more or less in keyboard order, except for when I was doing the 4-in-hand, luckily we're lucky enough to have 2 complete sets of handbells, and so I realized that I didn't actually have to do as much work as I was doing. So the secondary set I have up at the top, and the primary set I have at the bottom, but I guess you can't really see it because of the music stand. I'll over-exaggerate what I'm doing. Grabbing the G, and then because I'm already down here, it looks like I'm going somewhere that's much further away to put the G back where it belongs. So that's a slightly more complicated answer to your question. But, yeah.
When you taught us to ring, you taught us to ring in order that we would need them to get the switch.
Yes.
I mean, we weren't doing that in the bells. Most I think we had to use 4, but you taught us to lay it down in order that we were going to need them.
Yeah. Yeah, so Catherine was in my bell choir last year, and so when you're in a normal bell choir, you don't have all of these bells. You'll have like a G and an A, and then the accidental, so maybe G sharp and A sharp. But if it was a piece where, well, this is a bad example because this would never actually happen if you know anything about music. But if it was a piece where you had G and A sharp ringing the most, and you knew that you're going to be, or you had G and A ring the most, but you knew you were going to pick up all of your A sharps with your left hand, you would put your A sharp in the middle out of keyboard order so it would be more accessible for the hand to grab it. And you can learn all of that and more in Brent's Bell Choir at 6 p.m. on Thursdays here at Westminster Presbyterian Church. 6 p.m. on Thursdays, right before Westminster Choir. Yes? Yes, this is actually a quiz for all of you. How many directions, how many axes does the clapper of a handbell move on? If I move it side to side, what will happen? So what we're doing is I have my primary bell, which goes forward and backward. And then I'm doing I don't remember if this is a four-in-hand or a Shelley technique, but they're pretty much the same thing, so sin on me and sin on my household. But I'm taking my primary bell and turning it sideways before I pick up my secondary bell between my second and third finger. So now if I go forward and back, only that higher bell is going to ring, but if I rotate my wrist this way, the primary bell rings again, and if I ring it at about a 45-degree angle, we get both at once. Now, when you're in a full 5-octave bell choir, you're usually doing that with your bell and an octave higher than that to fill out chords as the music gets more and more intense. And if you're ringing below the top 4 positions of the bell choir, you're not going to have to deal with doing that, but it's really fun for solo ringing. It's a little mental puzzle, as Vale can attest, by the number of hours that we sunk into this music. Yes?
Do a couple more ringing techniques.
Okay, so I think tower swing is another one that I just learned as a swing. But a tower swing, I think, would be you, if it's 4 beats, and Catherine knows this one by heart. You ring on 1, back on 2, back up on 3, and then do something on 4 if you want. So without me narrating, it goes. More things you can do. You can do a thumb damp, which I'm going to get a glove for, which is where you take your bell and you put your thumb on it so it prevents it from vibrating, especially on the body of the bell, but also a little bit on the lip, especially with higher bells, so it sounds like. You can do a Martillato, which is when you push your fist into the table and the bell stops, so. Or you can do a lift of that, which will allow it to keep vibrating a little bit. What are some more fun ones? Oh, the little lasso, or the gyros, which is, the one time I've done this was in an arrangement of Dancing Queen that I rung in college, and I was a full foot and an inch taller than the girl next to me, and so it was difficult. But you take your bell and you ring it, and then you're going to stick it in the air and just dance away. Oh, you can do a shake, which is when, the way I teach it is that you take your bell, you rotate it a little bit to the side so we don't get carpal tunnel, and then you wiggle your wrist back and forth as you go up, so. And you'll see those all the time because they're fun.
Did you get one of the singing bell rods out?
I did not get the singing bell rods out, but that's another cool one that if you come to worship every Sunday, you might see in the next few years. But essentially what you're doing is treating the bell like a Tibetan singing bowl, and you get a wooden dowel. You can get it from Home Depot even, and you tap the side of the bell to vibrate it, and then you just keep going around, and it creates a very pleasant sound. Yes? Oh, the bell tree. Another one you can do is, I'll do a short one here. The bells interlock. So you can get 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 bells on a tree, and you can mallet your way up and down. Or if you need to move bells from one part of the church to the other, you can turn them into a bell tree and carry them up and down the stairs. You'll never guess which one of these is more common. That's a fun one too. There are so many things I wish I could have shown you, but time is limited. Does anyone else have questions? Yes? So I went to Westminster Choir College, which actually the bell choir is the strongest part of the school right now. Started here and then moved a few places before moving to Princeton, before moving to a city that I won't say the name of. But my handbell choir rung on the largest set of handbells in the world. So we are the only choir authorized to use that low C1 bell that I described earlier, where it's pretty much just overtones, and it's worth $50,000. It's insured. But we would meet for 2 hours on Mondays and 2 hours on Wednesdays for rehearsals, and then we would meet on our own for an hour and a half on Fridays and then go out and get pizza. And we were all great friends by the end of the year. And then we would tour once a year. Well, I got to do 2 before COVID happened, and then it canceled my last 2, which I'm not bitter about at all. But I went to Texas, like West Texas, back up, and then across I-70, and then we did one where we went to South Florida and back. And those were also very fun. And so you can imagine, I mean, the amount that Brent's choir, which is on Thursday nights at 6, gets done in a year, and they only rehearse for 1 hour and 15 minutes a week. We had 5 hours a week plus another 1.5 hours of independent rehearsals. And so we were bringing lots and lots of music. Anyone else? Okay. So we're going to do Amazing Grace now. And if you have such beautiful notes, and I put them somewhere else. If you have any more questions, or if you want to try a bell, you can come up after the presentation and I'll answer those for you too. If you turn to the next page in your music packets, I know what you're going to ask, Richard, and I'm prepared for it. Oh, do you have an F sharp or a C sharp? Never mind, I don't know what you're going to ask. If you have a C sharp, then I have more chimes available if you also want to ring Amazing Grace. Does anyone have a C sharp and they are just itching to ring a different chime? Because if you have a C sharp, you won't have this piece. Okay, so same routine as before. Ring when the word's underlined, damp when it goes away. You can sing a little bit more confidently. You can imagine this is Westminster Choir rehearsal, and it's lessons and carols, and John decided to do Amazing Grace for lessons and carols. I'm sorry, this is a bad analogy, but suspend your disbelief. And Brent's going to give a full stanza as introduction again. Okay, well, I'm glad I figured that out now. You give her 13 years and she'll be right up there with everyone else. So. Thank you all so much again for coming to Handbell Day at Westminster Presbyterian Church. And thank you, Brent, for playing, and Vale, who sank so many hours of practice time into preparing this music just for me to give her new music at the last minute instead, and then spent many hours working on that too. You are once again more than welcome to come up after this last piece to talk to me about handbells or try out the handbells or talk to Brent about his bell choir, which I'm sure you have all learned all of the information for by now. But it's really great. Oh, what am I doing in 3 weeks? I'm leaving. And, well, I can tell you what I'm doing for the next 3 weeks, too, which is a week from today before the Scotland presentation, which is after church, and we'll have lots of fun photos. We have normal worship, and I'm playing piano, actually, for the prelude. Fun surprise. And then the 24th is what we're calling Residency Sunday, and so I am being John for a day, and John is sitting out in the congregation. Yes, and he's going to sing the hymns and everything. And Mary is preaching. Mary Hoffman, who is our mission resident, and also my roommate and friend. And then I'm doing a week of Mad Camp, and then I am leaving and I'm moving home to New Jersey, and I have an interim job at Princeton Congregational Church in downtown Princeton for the year, and then I'm moving to Houston, Texas to do my master's degree in organ and church music. So, yes. And probably no more handbells in school, but I was spoiled in my undergrad. So yeah, thank you all again. Consider doing handbells in the future. It is so fun and low stress after about a month and a half. And this last piece is the Spanish hymn, Come Christians Join to Sing, once again arranged by Larry Sue. put all